If you'll see on your schedule, it says TMR Seeley is the one speaking, but she got COVID, and so we have a pinch hitter. So we're so grateful. Evelyn Gu, is it? Evelyn Gu, and she's from the ARC of Northern Virginia, so she's going to talk to us about some advocacy efforts today and how you can get involved and make change and make differences in your local and state and your federal community. So we're going to turn the time over to her. I'm going to give you this microphone because this one will help.
Okay.
Oh, no. Oh, she only needs that one. Okay.
No. Thank you, Lindsay. Hi, everyone. Sorry for the last minute switcheroo. I'm Evelyn Gu. As Lindsay said, I'm from the ARC of Northern Virginia. I'm not sure if any of you heard of the ARC, but we're one of the largest nonprofit organizations that advocates and supports people with disabilities. So we're located in Falls Church, but we serve basically people all over Northern Virginia. And there are different ARC chapters across the US. So I think today a lot of you are from, out of state as well and all over. So usually every state has its own state chapter of the ARC. And the local, jurisdictions and regional places have their own local ARCs as well. And then the national ARC is in DC. That's the ARC of the United States. So overall, there's I think 670 chapters across the US. And all of us, our mission is to help support those with disabilities and their families. And then every ARC has its own kind of programs and services that they provide. So in the ARC of Northern Virginia, we mostly deal with advocacy support to help make sure that our families and individuals are heard, to make sure policies are implemented to help those in need. And we also have guardianship programs for those that do not have any families to act as guardians, and just basic information and referral. So as families and parents of those with a disability, it's always good to start with your local ARC chapter to get information, and they can refer you to where you need to go. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in the afternoon session as well, about futures planning. But today, this presentation is going to be about advocacy and how you can help, advocate for your loved one, or if you are the person with disability, you can speak out for yourself. So I'll get started. Okay. So today we're going to talk a little bit about just the basics of what's advocacy and what you can do. So we're going to try to mention what is advocacy, and then why is advocacy important for people with disabilities and their families. And I can tell you guys are all mostly family members, and it's really nice to see the kids involved as well. You want to make sure that you can involve them as much as possible. So why is it important that we help you advocate? And how do you do that? Because that's always a big question, right? We all know it's important to advocate, but how do you do that in an effective manner? And then some kind of tricks about what could work to make it more effective and what may not work. When should you advocate? And then some current issues that a lot of our families are facing when they, in terms of advocacy. And then how do you measure whether your advocate supports are effective or not? Is it successful? So we'll talk about all of that today. All right, so what is advocacy? So advocacy not only means that you want to voice your needs and concerns, but you also want to make sure that when you voice them, you create some kind of change for yourself. So it's part of everything that you do. It's not just one action. So every day when you do something to advocate for yourself, that adds up to the whole big picture. And not only just, in terms of disability world and resources and things like that, but in general, speaking out for yourself, making sure your needs are met. That's what advocacy is. And then there's 2 levels of advocacy. So on a small micro advocacy scale, those are the things that you can do every day, in your daily lives, things, tasks, activities, such, for example, there we have some bullets, like asking for an accessible seat. If you need one, you speak out for yourself and, raise your hand or find someone who can help you get that. And then, as we know, we cannot use the R word anymore, but I've worked with some families, some of them are elderly, they still continue to use it. They don't understand why we shouldn't do that. So it's good to speak out. You can tell them, hey, we don't use that anymore. We don't use that word anymore. This is what we use instead. And then asking for help, just generally, every day I work with a lot of individuals with disabilities and mental health issues, on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of them, they are very outspoken and they want to let us know what they need. So they are able to speak out and tell us, oh, I need to, I want to go change this law, or I need a pair of boots or something like that. So they speak out and ask for help. Even if they don't know where to go, it's good to just speak out if you can. And not only that, but on the other side, refusing help is also another kind of advocacy. If you think about it, like, for example, if someone offers you help, but you know that you can do it yourself, right? So don't be afraid to speak out about that and say, hey, I can do this for myself. I don't need help. That way you're showing that you have the ability and you know your skills. So you're advocating for yourself. But you can always do it in a very polite and nice way, because sometimes people really just want to help. So these are all the kind of the small level things you can do to advocate for your loved one or yourself. And then on a macro level, if you're looking to, change laws and regulations, make impact for the public, you can write to your legislature. For example, I don't know if you guys have children who are on the Medicaid waiver. There's a lot of, waiver reforms. That's one of the big things that the ARC of Northern Virginia, we work to help make sure, we talk with our families to figure out what they want for the Medicaid waiver. And then we try to organize efforts, like we go to Richmond with a busload of families and kids every year to try to talk to legislators. And then we also try to get representatives, depending on like your jurisdiction. We try to get a bunch of different representatives come to our board meetings. We organize, meetings at people's houses, just so that these congressmen, congresswomen, and legislators and representatives can just hear us out, right? Give our family a chance to talk about what they want for their loved ones. So reach out to your government, local government, and also, if you're in Virginia, the Virginia legislation. And then if you're comfortable with speaking, and just like I saw other adorable kids when they are explaining, what they went through and their experiences, that is always wonderful for legislators to hear, because they can see, firsthand how these people feel and, what they need. So if you're comfortable speaking out, definitely participate and volunteer in some kind of event where you can tell your story. Also, families and parents are always a good resource as well. And then, of course, if there's rallies and public events, go out there and advocate for what you need. So these are kind of the small level things you can do day to day. And then there's like the higher level of, what you can do to help make change for the general public. And then why do we advocate? So we all know that we should advocate, right? But why should we do that? It's because, not everybody is aware of the disability world and the things that people have to go through every day. When I started this job like 7 years ago at the ARC, I didn't really personally have any experience with people with disabilities, but through my job, I've learned so much, and I interact with families and individuals themselves. So I've learned everything, and I do my research, try to really understand, what kind of issues there are so that we can better serve our clients. So you want to inform people what is going on. And there's so many different types of disabilities and mental health issues that we need to call out to all of them, so that even those who have like a rare disability, they can be heard, and then we can focus more research and attention on those. So you want to inform people. And as you know, awareness is it's more than half of the battle, right? Just knowing that there are people who need something, a certain thing, that will help push everybody in the right direction to support them. So, and then just innately, we all want to do the right thing. So we just need to know what that is and kind of guide our families and the public into the right direction so that everybody can advocate for that issue. And then generally, we want to not only be heard and inform people, but we also want to make change. So ultimately, that's the goal, is to cause change so that there are things in the society, in the public, that could be adjusted or added so that those in need can get all their needs met. So we want to find a resolution, and then not only make things better for our loved ones now, to help improve their lives and well-being, but to also make sure that other people just like us are also taken care of. And as well as kind of look for the future, because unfortunately, we're not always going to be here forever. So you want to make sure that your loved one is taken care of, and that there are policies, resources in place for them in the future, even if you can't really directly help them. All right, and then in terms of advocacy and the disability world, you guys are all family members and parents. So you already are familiar that historically, a lot of people with disabilities have been isolated. In the past, they've been institutionalized, but great thing is that we had all these advocacy support from families and individuals to move away from that and to have the new goal of including them in the society so that they can live as a typical person, right? So historically, they have been isolated. They're kind of silenced because we don't really, in the past, we didn't try to hear them out, listen to what they need. So because of that, they had a lot of reliance on public support and services, government benefits. They couldn't try to be independent if they wanted to. So now all the efforts are trying to move towards inclusion, independence, making sure that all these people have support network, and they can help with supported decision making. So pretty much everyone is involved, right? Family members, the individual themselves, the public, government. So it's kind of like a big, huge effort for everybody. So every little thing you do would help, even if you don't think it's going to make a change. So I'm just going to talk about a little bit about what you can do, kind of some concrete information, because this is all like big picture ideas, but what you can do as an example to advocate for yourself. The best thing to do is just tell your story. You want to make it personal, because we all know, we are very affected by emotions, right? By people's personal experiences. It impacts you when you hear that. So if you are comfortable sharing your story, you want to say it in every opportunity that you can. And definitely if the person themselves is able to do that, it comes, if it comes from them, it's much stronger, and it makes more impact for the public. So you want to include the person with disability, and we all know pictures speak 1,000 words, right? So if you have pictures of what they do, it could be everyday lives where they just running or walking or shopping, take pictures and show that, especially if there's an issue and they couldn't get the services they need. You can take a picture of that and show that, look, this person is crossing the street, but they don't have the tools to help them do that. And you want to show photos so that people can visually see what they need on a everyday basis. And then anecdotes, of course, just like what we had before in the previous session, just them telling their stories about how they found out that they had this disability, and then personal experiences of what they like to do, their dreams, things like that is always very helpful to be part of the story. And then also if you can give specific examples, just like I was saying, like if the person needs technology to support them with their job, they speak out, say, hey, I need something to help me, remind me that I need to go to work at this time, or I need to, we have this thing at the Arc of Northern Virginia, which is, it's a technology, a tablet where we can develop programs for, school teachers, for case managers to help support those that need a little bit of prompting. There are pictures that can teach our kids and our families that, if they wake up, hey, brush your teeth. And then when they brush your teeth, they click done, and then it goes to the next step, make sure you get dressed. So there's so much out there, and not everybody may know about it, but you want to speak out if you need something, and then maybe someone out there knows, oh, I have an idea, or I already have something that's good for you. So, give examples of everyday things that you would need or need support about. And then just keep in mind that it's not going to be perfect. Your personal experience, your personal experience is never going to be perfect, right? It's your personal experience is relatable to you. So all you need to do is just speak out so that you can be heard, and other people can understand, what you need. They can relate to you and make an impact. And then try not to do like form letters where, you're just filling out kind of forms and details. You want to kind of make it a story, a personal experience, and speak out about that. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. And then so just kind of a little bit more detail about, if you're going to tell your story, whether if it's a parent or, the person themselves, how should you kind of go about it? Of course, this is just a guideline. It's not anything concrete. So you want to introduce yourself, right? Tell a little bit about yourself so that people can know the background. And if there's a specific type of issue or disability, you can explain that. And then just be polite, be thankful for everyone's time, and share what you have right now. Focus on what's going on right now, what you already have, what you need, what you think you need, and then what you think will help you get there to what would make you happy. And then, you can give examples. What we usually recommend is you can always talk about maybe something like on a bad day, what's going on, because we know that if you're trying to make impact and get support and services, you can focus on, what's the kind of worst case, like what's the worst day for you, right? Because that's when you would need the most support. So you can give an example of that so people can understand, oh, there's a lot of things that can, go wrong or the person would need on a bad day. So we don't have any of those services. Let's work towards that. So that's the goal. And then what happens when things work well too. So not only just on like a worst case scenario, but also what is currently working, what you're happy about, what is actually good for you. And then you want to define a solution for getting to where you want to go. So you can make recommendations to, whoever is listening, the audience. If there's legislatures, you want to speak out about what kind of changes you want to make. So that's just a little bit kind of more concrete examples of how you can tell your story. And then, as family members and individuals with disabilities, you guys are not expert. You're not like doctors or attorneys. You are just here to tell your story, and you don't need to be experts, right? No one needs to know everything about that disability or what you need, because we're people. Every experience is personal to us. So that is much stronger when you speak out about your own experiences than if you're just spitting out, facts and data for those that you're trying to, influence. So facts, not that important, but your emotions, your own experiences, those make greater impact. And then, of course, nobody knows better than you, right? So if you're the parent or the person with disabilities and you're going through, a traumatic event or a crisis, you're the one who knows more about it yourself. So speak out about that so that people can hear you and know what you need. And then, so these are some examples of opportunities that you can try to advocate. So simply, write a letter, write it to your local government. You can make a call. We've had situations where someone is trying to, they had a Medicaid waiver, but they were having issues with trying to get reimbursed by the case manager and everything. So it was all just crazy. They couldn't get any response back. And then they had some connections with, the government and just went directly to them. And then the next day you get a response. So I know it's not easy, especially if you're dealing with like Medicaid, Social Security, they can be very slow. I personally have waited for hours on the phone just to speak with somebody. And if you leave a message, they don't call back, but you just, unfortunately, you have to keep going, keep trying, don't give up. And then you can always reach out to your local ARC if you're not getting some kind of response you want. And we may know specific people because we have connections and networks. So we can go to them, be like, hey, this person is having an issue. Can you look into it right away? And then usually, things can get resolved much quicker. So don't be afraid to make a call, write a letter. If you're able to meet people in person, like during, public events or rallies, definitely go in person and speak up. And then we also, we do this where we invite legislators to go to someone's home. Usually they're a parent with a child with disabilities, and then they are happy to host an event where we invite legislators. And then, all of our families and the local public, whoever wants to join, can come to this event and they can talk about the issues that relates to the disability world. And then we mentioned all these other ones, go speak at a town hall meeting, budget hearing. You can go to DC, your capital, attend a rally. So all these things, I know they involve you going out and speaking, but that's where you can meet other people as well who share your same, the same kind of goals as you. So the more that we can get people to support each other, the more that we will be heard. And just even if you don't really go out that much, you can just like something on a Facebook, like if there's an article about a disability or a happy story someone shared, you can like it, share it, and that's spreading knowledge, right? So even that is helpful. And then you can tweet, you can send articles. So the ARC of Northern Virginia, we have a Facebook and we post every day. There are things that we show to the public. We post events that are coming up. All of our events are free. So if you're local to this area, feel free to join the network. You can subscribe to newsletters, just kind of get involved, be in the community so that you can hear stories, and you can also get resources that you need. Because there are, to this date, I've worked in my position in the trust program for 7 years, and you would think that everybody we serve in our area already knows about us, knows about, guardianship, knows about, Medicaid waivers, but there's still people who don't. So it's never too late to get involved. Just even if you're kind of just hearing words that are repeating, Medicaid, Social Security, SSI, that would help kind of prompt you to, hey, maybe I should look into this. Maybe this is helpful for me and my loved one. So every little thing counts. And then, just in general, when you advocate for yourself, you want to be prepared, right? You want to know what you need to do to be effective. So you do have to make, do some of your own research. If there is some aspect of the disability world that you are not sure of, do basic research so that you can understand what you want to say and what questions to ask. Like, for example, if you're not very familiar with Medicaid waivers, but you probably need one for either yourself or your loved one, you can just Google it or go to the ARC website and just read up about what basically is a Medicaid waiver. And then that way, when you speak with legislatures or in public, you can at least be able to express what type of waiver you need, why do you think you need it, and things like that. So just basic research. You don't have to be an expert, like we said before, and know the rules. So sign up ahead for information and then address people properly and just generally be polite and nice. Everybody, the people I work with are one of the kindest, most, just heartwarming people that I have worked with, because we want to create change, right? We want to advocate for those in need. So you're already kind of in the right community. You just need to make sure that you express your concerns and your needs in an effective manner. And then if you're making a speech or contacting someone, just try to be concise. You don't need to go into really long details about things in the very beginning. Just keep it short so that your point gets across that you need help. So for speech, maybe just like max a couple minutes. And then if you're making a comment, sometimes people will make a speech and then you can ask questions or make a comment. Just keep that very short. And then if you're writing a letter to your legislature or writing an article about your experience, keep it short to a couple pages, 1 or 2 pages. And then for meetings to discuss changes and resources, like 15, 30 minutes is fine. So these are just some examples. But of course, everything is a little bit different depending on what, who your audience is and what you're trying to get across. So practice and then, be confident and know what exactly you want to say. And then, so those who are effective advocates, they are very knowledgeable. They know about their issues, what they want to request, the different options that they may have, and then their representatives in terms of, government support. And then you can be calm and clear, confident, which is always a good thing no matter what you do, right? And then make sure that you do contact your local representatives if you can. Anytime if there's an opportunity to do so, reach out to them. And then you guys probably already do this already, as parents, you want to find other parents who maybe are in the same similar situation. So you form a community, right? There's a lot of efforts that came out about parents, they gather together because they want their child to be in a supportive living situation. So, I've heard stories where parents come together, they might buy, a group of houses or apartments, and then they would, have their children live in the community together, so that everybody can be supported. So that's just an example. And then just work in groups, collaborate. That way your efforts can be heard. All right, and then in general, just when you're speaking, you also want to listen, and take feedback from other people, and then try to incorporate other people's comments so that it's a mutual process where you give and take, and get information from each other. You want to hear the concerns of others as well, because maybe there's somebody who have an issue that you never thought of, but it could be related to you as well. And then overall find solutions. And then, you may have to follow up a lot of times, right? Especially if you're communicating with legislatures, with the government. Like I said before, Medicaid, Social Security, you just have to keep following up, keep going back to the same person, or if you're not able to hear back, go to their supervisor, but just don't give up, after one try. And then have lots of patience. I know it's really hard, and especially on top of everything that you probably have to go through every day, and the things you have to deal with yourself or your loved one. But it's going to work out if you keep trying and get involved and get help, like the ARC of Northern Virginia, any other organization that shares your goals and missions. Reach out to them, because I'm sure there are people who are willing to help and get you what you need. And then no fear needed. So your presence or letter always have an impact, right? So like we said, every little small effort counts. Don't think that you're just writing, little one-page anecdote that's not going to affect people. Even if it affects one person and make them want to create change, that's already great. And then legislatures, they always want to hear from you as well. So because we are the ones who elect them and put them in office, they want to be involved as much as possible. So they want to hear stories. They want to hear exactly what you need, what changes to make in terms of laws. And then this is just kind of like a general guideline, like rule of thumb, 8 to 10 contacts can change someone's mind, right? If you keep making contacts, or have other people, reach out to the same person, sooner or later, they're going to realize, hey, I need to do something, because look at all these people sharing with me what they need. And there's no mistakes. Like you can't really cause anything, make any mistakes or get penalized for anything. Every little effort counts. And then, so here are some major current issues that, we always try to work with, as well as this big effort for the ARC of Northern Virginia in terms of advocacy as well, is just generally research. There are a lot of disabilities and mental health issues, some that we've heard of, like autism, Down syndrome, those are the big ones, but then there's also smaller disabilities that maybe impact smaller group of people, but all of them require research, right? So that's very important. Funding for research, you can advocate for that with your local government. Another big thing is housing. If you have kids who live with you, everything may be good, but what happens if you're not here, right? Do you have an idea of where they might go? Do they want to be independent and live on their own? Or are they someone who may require, 24/7 care? So if that's the case, do you have housing options for them? Do you feel comfortable putting them in a residential living situation? So all these kind of things, we try to advocate so that, because everybody could be different, right? There is no one solution that is for everybody. One person may love to live in their own home even after you're gone. So do they need support doing that? Another person may say, I want to live with a roommate in my own apartment, right? So that's completely different, but there are resources out there who can meet each person's unique needs. So you want to advocate for that if you can. And then we mentioned this before, Medicaid waivers. That's a big deal. Medicaid waivers are very helpful, but there's a process, there's a wait list. For a lot of parents, this is very overwhelming to even know where to get started. Good thing is that on the ARC of Northern Virginia's website, we have this beautiful little chart that's color coded, which explains, what are the different types of Medicaid waivers. So if you need to get started on that, you can check out the website. Every state's Medicaid program is different. So if you guys are from out of state, you make sure you, read about your own state's Medicaid information. And then community transition. So if, your loved one is transitioning out of school and into, either getting a job or just being out there on their own, how do you make that transition, right? There could be support that they need because, they were supported already in school, they had all the resources, but now that they have transitioned out, they're kind of on their own, or, they may need different types of support. So if you're in Northern Virginia area, we have these transition guides that we have the hard copies that we can send you, and also you can read them online, but we have different transitional points in a person's life, and there's a guide about all of that. So there's one about early intervention. So if you have a young child and you just found out that they have a certain type of disability, this booklet would be good for you to check out to see, what kind of things you need to start thinking about. And then there's transitioning out into finding jobs. If you need support with job coaches, organizations that can help your loved one get a job and maintain it and get support, there's a booklet on that. There's a booklet on housing. There's, we have a series of that called transition points. So you can check that out. And then, as I mentioned before, finding employment, getting job, even volunteering for something. That's always, you rather that the person can be working and volunteering than just staying at home and not really being challenged. So these are all the things, even if the person cannot advocate for themselves to explain what they want, you as the parent or the family member can look into it and get options, right? So we always want to have different options that we can know, what's right for my loved one with disability. Okay. And then defining how successful you are in terms of your advocacy efforts is just foremost being heard. That's the very first step, is to be able to be heard so that, your voice can represent other people as well as yourself. And then those that are listening to you can know what you need. And then even if you not necessarily get exactly what you want or your needs met, just making an impression, right? If you tell a very emotional story, a personal experience about yourself, even if it's something that people don't know how to help you with, that impacts them. It makes them remember, so that it's very, very vivid in their head. And maybe they share that story with someone else, and then it gets, spread across the public. There could be one or two people who are like, oh, maybe I have an idea how to do that. So just make an impression and informing people what you need. So like we said, everything could be just baby step. Every little small change may count. So don't give up. And then, forming relationships with those that are around you, share your beliefs and what you need, involving the person themselves as much as possible so that they will have a lot of connections with other people and other organizations. All right, and then, so here are some examples. So in terms of like advocacy support on, the small level and on the bigger level, you can advocate on a local level or state level, and then there's the big federal level. So these are just some examples. that I'll touch upon. In terms of like local levels. Yes.
I mean, maybe speaking out of turn here, that I wasn't even though I have a 2-year-old, I wasn't really aware of a lot of the issues that people advocate for and what's up in the government and what kind of learning recently. And I know the arts have done great, like I saw you saying kind of tell your story. I'm wondering, I know the arts has some videos and some things like that on their website. We've been going to these conferences all these years, and still a lot of us don't really know what you mean by tell your story. Like I would go to the art stuff and I would think, what do they mean by tell your story? And there's kind of places where you can see that they have advocates telling their story about a certain issue. I'm just wondering if you can direct some people's attention towards this, because some of this stuff about how to go about it when you don't even conceptualize what you're talking about, like if there's ways that you can give people here examples of what, because I know you guys have like videos of somebody talking about why a waiver is important to them, or why having direct support professionals in their residence is important to them, and how that relieves their mother from their care and things like that. So these are very abstract ideas you're talking about, and without those stories, I don't think people here necessarily understand what you mean by advocate. So I just was wondering if you could share some of that information.
Okay.
If I could, as a mom, I hear you. And I think that's why the ARC Northern Virginia is such a good example. They represent several counties here. They don't represent my county. I live in Prince William County. Our ARC is very small. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but the ARC Northern Virginia is unusually large. And on their website, like you can sign up for emails and they'll send you issues. They'll send you a representative letter and say, this is what we're currently advocating for. Would you write your legislators? And they'll give you a link and you can look up your local legislators that are in your district. And so I think if you join organizations,
So here we have
like the ARC, whatever your local ARC is, or they actually, like my Moms in Motion is my case manager for Carolyn's Medicaid waiver. And Moms in Motion as an organization does the same thing. They'll say, okay, in Virginia, they're voting on this week for the budget. Would you write a letter? Here's an example of what you can say, and this is the name of the legislation. And I just copy and paste and write a short paragraph and send it. I spend like 3 minutes because I figure they need a letter. No offense, my story is probably not that important. I know you think it is. But I think it's more important that they hear from like 1,000 people. So I think, in my opinion, the easiest, because your time is limited and your energy is limited, the best way to get involved is locally first and join organizations that will send you information on what's going on locally. And for me, that's been our case manager, our service facilitator for her Medicaid waiver, and then the ARC in North Virginia. And although they don't represent my county, they do that. And they have unbelievable things on their website, which my ARC does not have. So I joined them and I go, they have webinars and stuff online that you just sit there and watch, like how to apply for Social Security disability. It's just a webinar and you just sit there. And I used to have to go, when Carolyn replied, I went to a 2-day class for that. Now there's a webinar.
and it's all free. Like all these things are free.
What is on their website. So the reason we invited them here is because although they may not, and they don't represent my county, I then have to go find it in my county, and sometimes my county doesn't have it because they represent a very wealthy area. So sometimes the same programming doesn't exist, but at least you know what? It gets me looking and it gets me asking, and I can say to them, okay, what is a service facilitator? And I can go talk to my service facilitator versus my service facilitator, which does it, or a case manager or whatever, and it gets very confusing. But if you just learn what she's talking about, like Medicaid waivers are different in every state. If you don't know what one is, go look on the ARC in Northern Virginia and just learn what a Medicaid waiver is. Then call your ARC or talk to your case manager and find out what the Medicaid waivers are in your state and how to get started. A lot of school systems do help you with that. Ours did not. My school never told me about it. So, you know, you can't depend on others, I think is the bottom line. And I also want to say, I think advocating as parents for our child is number one advocacy on our list and probably takes the most time and effort and is the hardest. And one thing that a pediatrician early on told me to do that I think has helped me advocate for Carolyn more than anything. We had moved to Virginia. She was in 4th grade, and I walked in his office with a file about this thick, which I thought was really pared down. Because I started with file, and he looked at me and he said, "No doctor wants to talk to you. Why did you bring me this? I'm just a pediatrician." And he taught me to make a list. I now have 4 pages. One is all of her surgeries. It says the date of the surgery, the doctor, where it was performed, and just a summary of what it was. So I have surgeries and hospitalizations. I have her medication list with doctors at the bottom of who does each prescription. Then I have a list of physicians. I have like psychiatry, his name, his address, his telephone, his fax. So I have surgeries and hospitalizations, medications, and I have a diagnosis list. I have a primary list and a secondary list. So I have 4 pages that when we meet anybody, anywhere, I can hand to them and they just know a quick summary of who Carolyn is. And I cannot tell you, every time we go to the ER, they're like, "Are you an accountant?" They go, "Well, this looks like something an accountant would do." I go, "No, a pediatrician years ago told me." They said, "This is great. I wish every parent, whether they have an elderly family member or, you know, it doesn't matter. Everybody's got problems. But they come and go, they don't know their meds. They don't know what date the surgery was or who the hospital was." And it's amazing, all these little things that you can advocate with. And I think your ARC is the first place to start for the information.
Oh, careful.
So I do have a question at the end of this, but I wanted to piggyback on it. I just went through 4 years ago, I went through the process of getting a Medicaid waiver in the state of Georgia. State of Georgia has its own, there's very little in the way of guidance for it. But please correct me if I'm oversimplifying. The Medicaid waiver, really all it does, if you have private insurance, that'll cover some stuff. And then anything beyond that your private insurance does not cover, the Medicaid waiver might help with some of it. For example, hearing aids in the state of Georgia are one of the things covered under a Medicaid waiver. The problem with getting a Medicaid waiver, for me at least, was you have to first apply for Social Security disability and get rejected, and then you have to go back through the waiver process, which is very long and painful, and document why your child should get the waiver. There are a number of automatic qualifying conditions, and at least at the time, the state of Georgia did not consider the 11Q family of issues to be an automatic qualifying condition. You have to then come up with doctor's notes, hospital records, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Go see your caseworker, make your case. I spent in 2018 about 800 hours over the course of 6 months. Showed up, got in the person's face with literally 1,600 pages of printed documentation and would not take no for an answer. But it worked, and we got the waiver. So that's great. When COVID rolled over, we were told originally that we would have to get it renewed every single year. So we got the process every year. But then COVID had happened, and they said, "Don't worry about coming in to do that. We'll just give you another year." That's been 3 years now, and I haven't heard anything further. As long as it keeps working, I'm not going to worry about it. My question, one of the things that I would really like to see is adding the common 11Q disorder issues as automatic qualifying conditions. Is that a federal thing? Is that a state thing? And where do we need to even start with that?
I think in terms of this chart. Sorry. Oh. Oh, you want me to go ahead? Sorry.
That was the question.
I mean, I think I'm not the expert in this area. I can, definitely look, go back to our office and ask our expert. But in terms of this chart, it would be part of, whatever waiver policy and services. So that sounds like a state, because every state, unfortunately, Virginia is not that great in terms of support for those with disabilities.
I don't believe that, but okay.
We are number 48 out of 50. And, excuse me for interrupting. But yeah, so I understand. But I will tell you this about the Medicaid waivers. Your child is a minor, right?
Yeah.
Once they become a legally an adult, your income and your assets no longer matter. And it is much more helpful. So for now, it's worth keeping your spot and don't lose it. Because once they become an adult, it will be better. Sorry.
So can I
Can I just add something to, I don't know if this is state level or federal level, but I was told, and I do have to requalify every year.
We
and
don't
it's
have
a
that in
long,
Virginia.
crappy, blah, blah, blah. And they did ask me, just on my last form, I just filled it out. My income, my blah, 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 my stock portfolio, all of that was still on there.
But you don't legally have to answer that. You just put not applicable.
Okay,
Once your child's an adult, you say, and Medicaid lasts also.
yes,
The SSI people, and they actually falsified mine and turned it in with mortgage and assets. I had to write a letter and say, I didn't say this, that's not true.
well, so what I wanted to add to you, I was told, and I don't know if this was a federal decision, but as COVID hit, and it's still going on, that no one can be denied their Medicaid. Is that true? Yeah, and I was told that by our state, but I was assuming it's a federal, just like in the beginning, how they were telling you can't, kick somebody out for not paying their rent. And that's still going on, but I still have to fill out all the information. But my backstop is, well, COVID's still here and they can't kick her off. But I have to go through that every year. And they did ask me if I bought a new car in the last
Tell them
year.
that has anything to do with it.
Yeah, if your child is an adult over 18, sometimes they have different staff, so you just be consistent with, what is happening with your situation. But I will talk a little bit more about that in the afternoon session as well, about futures planning. I'll talk about the waiver and social security and stuff like that. But generally speaking, if your child is over 18, they're considered their own person. So you would report everything that's related to themselves.
It's probably still on there because it's a copy of everything that I filled out from day
Oh, yes.
when she was 15. Yeah.
So that's, you need to let them know that things are different and
Well, they know how old she is because
you can't assume anything with social security.
I don't know anything.
They are in the business of rejecting it.
Yeah, so their first thing is to reject, if they see anything that doesn't meet they have checklists where they check and they want to reject. So you want to kind of be proactive, like it's not like they're tricking you, but it's very easy for you to think they want something.
One more question, then we do that.
So,
Well, we're gonna be discussing some of this stuff in the session after lunch. But if you have someone in childcare, you need to get it down. We'll go ahead and finish your.
yeah,
Lisa has a question about advocacy. I was wondering, will people take you seriously if you're a kid?
if you're what? A kid?
If you're a kid,
Of
like,
course,
trying to advocate.
yes, of course. If there's something you want to say, you can always feel free to say it. Like if you have the opportunity where they ask, oh, does someone want to tell their story or make a comment, ask a question, just like you're doing now. You wanted to ask that question, so you go ahead and this is the opportunity to do that, right? So like we said before, every little thing counts. Just have to remember to be polite and to address people properly. And tell your story. So if it's something related to the topic, I don't think it would ever hurt. And I think it would be even great coming from a kid because, oftentimes we overlook what the person needs, right? So I always say involve them as much as possible. So if you can involve yourself in situations or public speaking, definitely do that. Don't doubt yourself. Okay, I think this is just the last slide and then there's no more. So these are just some examples. I can tell that everybody has great questions and concerns. But like Sal said, join the website. You guys could probably, I don't know if you can pull it up later after this, but the ARC of Northern Virginia, you can sign up for newsletters. We have reached out to families asking if they want to make like a 3-minute clip of their story, depending on what topic it is and what disability we're trying to advocate for at that time. We, reach out to different people who would be more suitable. But we do, that's like something we do on a, constant basis. So if you want examples, you can check out the website, go to the ARC of Northern Virginia YouTube site. We have 3-minute clips, we have hour-long webinars that you can read, watch, look at the screen to see the PowerPoints, just to familiarize yourself with the different types of advocacy support you can do. Like that's one of the big thing at the ARC of Northern Virginia. Other ARCs across the US, they may be more focused on like residential support where, they have group homes, but they're not really that big on advocacy. So every ARC is different. So depending on where you live, you look into your local ARC chapter first to see what they have. Yes, so we have these handouts. So this is like a magazine publication that we did. So feel free to grab some. It's also on our website. It has a bunch of really good articles, Social Security, Medicaid, good for reading. It was meant to be at like doctor's offices, places where people can grab while they're waiting. But COVID hit, so we didn't get to distribute too much in person, but feel free to grab some. And then we made a packet for you guys specifically today about trust and futures planning, which I will talk about this afternoon. And then if you need the PowerPoint for today, I made some copies. I'll talk a bit more about this later in the afternoon session too, but we do offer free consultation. So I work in a trust program, but our consultation could be just generally anything you want to talk about, and it's free. So we always recommend families to, do that first, because you get to talk to my supervisor, Tia. She is a mother of 2, and she, her daughters have disability, and she has been doing this for decades. So there are like tricks and shortcuts where if you don't know where to start, where to go for help, she can be like, hey, go talk to this person, or I know this person, and let me connect you guys. So it's always a good place to get started. And outside of my department, we have advocacy support, guardianship. So reach out. You can grab my business card, sign up your name if you want me to follow up with you, and let me know what questions you have, and I'll be happy to connect you guys. Even if you're not like in Virginia, maybe you're in Maryland, DC, or other states, we may know people that we've talked to in other ARCs or other organizations out of state. So it's never too late, or don't be scared to ask. Okay. So yeah, here I think we're out of time. So here are some examples of different types of advocacy support across the different levels. So you can take a look. A lot of them is about, for the federal level, it's mostly funding, right? If you can advocate for the federal government to get funding, that kind of translates to the state level where the programs can be developed. Like Medicaid waivers that's specific to each state. And then on the local level, that's usually where these programs are implemented. So all these levels work together. So if you are able to advocate in any aspect, definitely go ahead and do that. And, don't give up, keep trying. And then here's just a link to find your local legislators, contacts if you want to say hi, write a letter. It's all in the PowerPoint too, so you can just grab that. And then join your local ARC chapter if you can. And then here's the ARC of Northern Virginia. And then the next slide is just my information, my supervisor. Feel free to email us. We are always happy to, communicate with you. All of our resources are free. So it's just a great place to get started. I know it's overwhelming, but you have to start somewhere, right? We're here to help provide you resources, but you will have to do that on your own to get started. I know a lot of parents want to be handheld, do everything, but the good thing is that we have everything on our website. There's a list of what you need to do if you want to apply for a waiver, step 1, 2, 3. If you need to find job coach, here are the organizations you can contact. So everything's made very clear, and they're also translated to other languages as well. So we have the transition guide that I explained. They're in like 5 or 6 different languages. So we try to make sure everybody gets what they need. Okay, and I'll talk to you guys if you're here this afternoon. We'll talk more about like futures planning. So as a parent, what you need to do to plan for the future for your loved ones. Thank you, guys. Feel free to grab.
Thank you so much. All her materials are here if you want to grab it. We have a lunch break now, so meet back here in about an hour. And then we're going to be talking about some of these other things that we were just chatting about and asking questions about, so we can go a little bit more depth into that in futures planning. So